Yes, that's exactly what it is. Ugh.
Could start as early as 1, but more likely 3, 4, and 5.
Yeah.
So we got the weather report.
Right.
All right. I will call the Glens Falls Industrial Development Agency meeting to an order. This is our April 14th meeting. Thank you all for being here. We do have a quorum. Mayor Collins is absent today and away, and Dr. Cordes is just joining us, so we are only missing Mayor Collins. Thank you very much, everyone, for being here. Just a brief report from myself. As you know, last month on March 10th, we had our annual meeting. We also had committee meetings, and we had a regular meeting. Today, we will review the minutes from that regular monthly board meeting, and we'll do that for both the IDA and the LDC. The minutes for the committee meetings and the annual meetings, we'll push those to next month, and we've got them back and they're under review. So we'll do that at our main meeting. Also,
This meeting is being recorded.
Okay.
You knew that.
I also wanted to just talk a little bit about video conferencing. As you know, we've had the authority through the state of New York and emergency executive orders by the governor that have allowed us to do this type of video conferencing for some time now. And that emergency order runs out tomorrow on the 15th. It's possible it could be extended. But in addition to that, there was some guidance in the state budget that was recently passed. And we'll get more information out to everybody over the next month as we get some updates, and Kara is carefully tracking that.
Yeah, I have an update if you want.
Yep. Yes, go ahead, Kara.
So the Committee on Open Government issued guidance yesterday. I sent it out last night, literally in the middle of the night when I don't sleep. But it doesn't really, it clarifies some of the requirements. So what it does say is, as Judy mentioned, is that as long as the emergency order remains in effect, it may or may not be extended by midnight tomorrow. But as long as that remains in effect, then we can continue to operate as is. Once that goes away, there's video conferencing will be permitted, but we would have to enact a policy, and the members that are appearing virtually have to have extraordinary circumstance to appear, which we would identify what those are in the policy. So for instance, illness, things like that of that nature, they would be included in our policy, and whatever other terms we wanted to include in that policy regarding video conferencing. The other main component is that a quorum has to be in person. So in order to appear virtually, it's not just a matter of convenience or preference. It's a matter of one of the extraordinary circumstances that would be identified in a policy that you could adopt. You're not required to do that, but that's something that would be discretionary. So I read the memo from City of Open Government. I've got to go through it again, but that's the general gist of it.
So Kara, the requirement that we live streamed remains in effect, but our ability to appear virtually is being eliminated on some levels.
Right. So
the cost remains the same.
Right.
No cost saving. Okay.
Yeah. So our requirement to live stream the IDA is through a different statute. So that doesn't apply to, say, for instance, the city. That applies to the IDA only.
Understood.
So we need to continue to live stream. If we did do virtual, we also need to live stream, but that's really not an added component for us, but it would be an added component for a municipality that doesn't normally do that. Non-members could Zoom in. There wouldn't be an issue with that. But if we did it and we offer the virtual add-in, then, we would live stream it. The live streaming part remains the same for us. Yeah.
Goes on. So that's still a budget item that we can't,
Correct. And it's 5 years of maintaining those.
Right.
And they changed the transcribing rule. It sounds like it'll be on request.
Okay.
I think everybody is kind of still going through it, what appeared in the budget and how this works in practice.
Okay. All right. Sorry. Judy. Oh, yeah.
If I just have one question, Kara, because I saw that, but I didn't really look at it closely yet, the thing we sent this morning. So if I understand right, so we would need, as of next month, we would need at least 4 people in physical attendance to have a quorum, like to hold the meeting. Others, under whatever circumstance, could join the meeting, presumably could vote in the meeting, but would not contribute toward the constitution of a quorum.
No.
I think, Jeff, it's even a little bit more complicated than that. We have to pass a policy ourselves. Right. And so in the next month or so, we will draft something and get it out to the members to take a look at.
Yeah, we would need to draft a policy. And I'm assuming that ABO and, the other entities are going to be looking at this, coming up with their own guidance, coming up with their own proposed or sample items. There is a list that the Committee of Open Government has come out about extraordinary circumstances, items that they have indicated they believe would qualify. But so if there's a quorum in person, then the meeting can be held, and then those members appearing virtually can vote. If there's not an in-person quorum, then there's no meeting.
No meeting. Okay.
So what we will do is when we have something a little bit more, either from the Committee on Open Governments or ABO, we will send it out to everybody. So, and then what we'll do is we'll draft a policy, and then everybody will be able to weigh in on that, and we'll make some decisions going forward. Okay.
Right.
It's good.
So that is all I have to report. Let me go to the administrative reports. So we do have the minutes. Everyone's had a chance to review from our regular meeting held on March 10th. Any comments, edits, changes to those? If none, is there a motion to accept the minutes as presented?
So moved.
Jane, so moved. Second by Mary. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion is passed. Minutes are approved. The financial reports. So we have both the February and the March financial reports. We held back the financial reports for February at last meeting so we could do the annual financial review and audit. Mark, anything that you want to add before we take that up?
Yeah, the only expenses were the second half of Whittemore, the initial payment of Whittemore, $3,500, and then the Fitzgerald bill for $1,000. The revenue was just a little bit of bank interest. March expenses were Fitzgerald invoices, 3 of them that totaled $2,224. Same thing in March revenue, just a bit of bank interest. Budget has been updated for the year. The audit's complete. 2 journal entries were made as of December 31st. The Paris report was submitted timely. Due froms disappeared due to IDA from LDC and CDC with the checks clearing. And that is it.
All right. Any questions of the members on the 2 financial reports? If none, is there a motion to accept both the February 28th and month ending February and month ending March financial reports for the IDA.
I'll make it.
Lois, is there a
Second.
second? Second was Denise, I think. Yes.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any nays? Any abstentions? There being none, the motion is passed. Thank you. I do want to thank our team for getting us through the month of March. It's quite something annually. And getting the Paris report up and done before the deadline was also well done. So thank you to everybody who helped to get that done and getting our audit done on time. So thanks, folks. Mark, you in particular, I think, put in quite a few hours. The payment of bills are Schedule A. We have one payment, and it is for our balance due on our audit to Whittemore Dowen and Ricciardelli for $3,945. Is there a motion to approve that payment?
I'll make it.
There was one,
Is there a
one late
second?
item.
Oh,
There was one late item from Fitzgerald I thought was going to be on there for $167.53.
we can
Well,
add-
Kara, I don't know. You're kind of late getting your bill to us. I'm not sure we can manage it.
How much was it, Mark?
I'm sorry, $167.53.
That's too much.
Can we forget the 53 cents?
Right. Yeah, not
That's
yet.
fine. That's fine.
All right,
Where will
so
I get
no,
Mark, where will the checks be so I can sign them or check them?
Right now, they're in my right-hand drawer of the desk
Okay,
at the office.
okay.
Are you going to be up? When are you going to go up, Lois?
I'll go up in a little while after this meeting is
Oh.
over.
Okay, so I'll tell
All
Bernie to take them out and she'll have them.
Good, perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Yep.
so Schedule A is now $3,945 for Whittemore and $167.53 for Fitzgerald Morris Baker. All in favor? I'm sorry,
Aye.
motion, is there a motion to approve? Lois, I think
I made it.
you made it second.
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 Second was Jane. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any nays? Any abstentions? There being none, the bills shall be paid and Lois will be signing those checks. Thank you, Lois.
We'll check to
Uh,
make sure they're correct first.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Please.
Right.
Jeff, any other reports besides our project reports?
Just very briefly, as this board knows, of course, the LDC approved the sale to move forward with the sale of the properties on South and Elm Streets to Bonaccio Construction. That, of course, is in the midst of its 90-day comment period, so there's a little lag time here. In the meantime, the next, at least from this board's perspective, the next task will be, they will be seeking, as that agreement implies, they'll be seeking some IDA support. We can discuss this at the next meeting. We'll have to obviously wait until we have an application from them for that. I'll help them sort of work in coordinating that. The one thing, I know the mayor and I have talked at some length, and as well as with others, about how we might structure these programs going forward. As you know, there's been there are some sort of ongoing changes in how IDA support might be provided for different kinds of projects, and I'm thinking specifically of residential and things. Also, I would love to figure out the structure and the length and how these things are structured. There's maybe an implication, let's say a tacit understanding between the mayor and Bonaccio with respect to what they're looking for. There's a little bit of wiggle room there, but they have the precedent they're using is the last one that they got from the city. I'm not really sure what that, the basis on which that was designed. So what I'm going to try and do, the mayor and I are going to work on sort of, are there formulas in which, IDA support, and I'm thinking particularly of pilots, might be extended, whether it's length, whether it's, percentage of relief, whatever that is. So that's something I think we want to look at going forward, and we'll have more to talk about as we move on.
So Jeff, I'm happy to sit down with you and the mayor and go over that. This board has always looked at on a project by project basis. And so that application is important to us, including the development and operating budgets that we ask for, so that we can better understand the transaction. And then we look at it on a case by case basis. So there are some legal responsibilities and rules, and I think we should have Kara sit in at that meeting as well to bring you and the mayor up to date on that. But the way this IDA operates, and many other IDAs all across the state, kind of looks at these on a project by project basis. So in terms of what does the project need in order to be able to come forward? So we can discuss that, I think, in a separate meeting. And if you want to have some type of workshop, we can do that as well and have all the members involved. But I think maybe first steps would be for Kara and I to sit down with you and the mayor. And we've got about 10 projects right now that we still have some contractual relationship with, and we can walk you through those and show you how those decisions were made.
That's great. Thank you.
Okay. And so you're saying to us that we're expecting an application coming in, but we don't have one yet, just so
Correct.
to be clear for the
That's
minutes.
correct.
Okay. And then in terms of project reports, we do have 2 projects that are in construction that we have agreements with. And the first is 1525 Park Street through EASM Holdings or Elizabeth Miller. And the second one is 88 Ridge Street or the Ridge Royal Queensberry Hotel. Both have construction moving forward quite steadily. The Park Street or Elizabeth Miller project is coming up upon deadline. And so I do think in the next the next meeting, we may have to take that matter up. It does not appear as if they're as close to completion as I thought they would be. And I have heard from Elizabeth not in the last month, but there were some supply chain issues that they were experiencing. Jeff, do you have an update?
Yeah, just a little bit of color on that. I spoke to Elizabeth less than a week ago, and they're running into specific sort of issues. The last she had spoken to me was they're having problems getting an elevator. I'm sure it might be components of an elevator. I don't think they deliver one big elevator and you put it in. They're obviously they need to do that. That's sort of a foundational project, right, around which many other things are sort of constructed. So, if you get held up in sort of these key points, that holds up lots of other things. It sounds like, she's still thinking in her case, as opposed to the Queensberry Hotel, which I'll talk about in a minute, that, she's sort of trying to weigh the cost of ramming things forward and the cost of waiting. In some cases, there's a hope that material costs, for instance, or labor, the tight labor market might loosen up. And then you say, well, is the cost of waiting and your carrying costs more than the cost of trying to get things, no matter what they are, no matter how expensive they are now. So key things holding her up, but nothing at her own end that's sort of holding up the project. She was originally looking at spring to open, but I would say that's clearly out of the picture.
Okay. So we'll try to get together with Elizabeth and have more at our next meeting, but I think our agreement does expire sometime in June,
Okay.
late June. So we'll be talking about that again. Jeff, on Queensberry Hotel, update on that.
Yeah, and I've spoken to Tyler Herrick too. They, even though they're dealing with the same supply things, apparently at these points, it becomes just a question of how much are you willing to pay. In the case of the Queensberry, it seems like it's worth it because they have, they've made commitments to, events in that new space by early summer. I believe he said even as early as June. So, obviously they need to have these things at least far enough done that they can hold events, weddings and things. They are pretty much overbooked in some cases. So it looks like they have decided that the cost of construction is worth, moving forward as quickly as possible. So they're still on schedule to be operating, however defined, by I would say early summer.
So let's take a look at our agreement with them in terms of what we anticipated the total cost to be and see if any update is needed and maybe handle that next month as well. Okay?
Sure.
Okay. Any questions by the members about these reports? Okay. Any other business? There being none, is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make it.
Very good. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. Next meeting is Thursday, May 12th. Okay. So the next meeting is the Greater Glens Falls Local Development Corporation, and I serve as secretary of that board. And with Mayor Collins being absent today, I've been asked to take on and run this meeting. So I'd like to call the meeting to order. We do have a quorum and just want to welcome everyone to this meeting and to all our guests. I won't do a chair report on behalf of the mayor. I have, I think other than the administrative reports and the project reports that we'll go through as part of the meeting will be sufficient. And I think that we can incorporate into the minutes the same as we reported for the IDA concerning the anticipated change in our scheduling related to the budget and the executive order. The administrative reports, we had no committee meetings in the last month, so there are none. We do have the minutes from the regular board meeting that were held on March 10th. And we also had a special meeting on April 1st concerning that Bonaccio project. And so we have those two sets of minutes to review today. All the members have had them for some time now. Any questions or comments on the draft minutes? There being none, is there a motion to approve the minutes for both March 10th and April 1st as presented?
So moved.
So moved.
Jane? Denise, second. All in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Any abstentions? Any nays? There being none, the minutes are passed as presented for both meetings. Similar to the IDA, we have the financial reports for both February and March. Let me turn it over to Mark. Mark, anything you want to add?
Yeah, February expenses, just the Whittemore, half the audit bill for $5,000. The typical insurance from prepaid for $1,220. 5 payroll items that totaled up to be $2,074. March expenses, Fitzgerald, for $2,160. Again, the insurance plus a DBL insurance for $1,324. 4 payroll items that totaled $2,111. All the cash accounts have been reconciled. Again, the audit was completed, pretty typical, a few typical adjusting entries. Paris report was submitted timely, budget's updated, and the due to IDA has been cleared with that payment, with that check clearing. And roughly about 34,000 left in that general account. So once these checks that are going to be approved today clear, it'll be around $30,000 available. That's it.
All right. Any comments or questions for Mark? There being none, is there a motion to approve the 2 financial reports for February month ending February and March 2022? Lois, is there a second?
Second.
Second, Mary, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any nays? Any abstentions? There being none, the financial reports are approved. Schedule A, we have payment of bills. Fitzgerald Morris Baker Firth, $832 for account temp payments for 2044, 484.42, 447.86, and 1,069.38. We have our workers' comp bill from Hartford Insurance for 223 and a Spectrum bill for 166.64. No additions. That's it. Is there a motion to approve the payment of bills as presented?
I'll make
So
it.
moved.
Lois, second.
Second.
Second, John, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The bills shall be paid. Lois, I think you're gonna do that too?
Yeah,
Okay. Let me turn it over to Patrick Dowd and or Jim Thatcher to do the project reports. Downtown, we'll start with downtown revitalization.
Right, Jeff mentioned already that at this point, we're just waiting for the clock to be finished to be able to go through the sale of the two properties. And as he said earlier, we're waiting for the IDA proposal. I'm not sure if that's the right word, but we're waiting for an application to be sent from them. Other than that, I don't have anything else to report on that project.
Just one quick addendum to that, just so this board knows. I have been working with a fellow named Dan Bagro at Parks and Historic Preservation at Parks and Rec to pursue the tax credits. So one of the things, I know there have been questions about what Bonaccio was going to be, quote unquote, doing with the buildings. A good sign for sort of historic pres is that they're pursuing the tax credits. So they're looking to maintain all three of the buildings intact as far as aesthetics. So they'll be working under the relative scrutiny of the tax credit program.
Jeff, have they set up a file yet on the CRIS system, the historic tax credit system?
Not that I saw, though I haven't looked this week, but not as of last week. The big issue we're looking at now that Dan and I are looking at, this Dan Bagro, are as I think this board knows, the Sandy's and Hot Shots, the two South Street properties were already listed. The 36 Elm, the incubator, was eligible but was not listed for whatever reason. So I'm following up with some information for him to sort of get that listed, and that's the first step in the process.
So the CRIS system, it's the acronym for the state's digital system at Historic Preservation. You should ask that your name be added to that. So when they do file documents, you have access. So have Bonaccio add your name to the list so you can go in and see those documents. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Anything new to update on the CDBG CV Small Business Recovery Fund?
I'm gonna defer to Jeff on that and to Jim on that, because all of that happened before I arrived.
Yeah, and I'll defer to Jim since he knows more about it than I do.
Jim, throwing
I'm
it
able to
in.
pass this down to, right?
And I'll defer to.
Right.
Is your dog there?
Yeah, the initial HUD funding for what we call the Small Business Recovery Fund is pretty much expended. We did do the Common Council approved one additional $7,500 deferred loan last month. That brought that total to 26 out of that program. And the majority of those businesses have responded to a questionnaire we sent out on a rolling basis, asking if they've spent the funds and give us a general description of what they spent them on, just so we could see if there were any red flags there from a compliance perspective. It was not a hard questionnaire, but we wanted to make contact with everybody, which I think is good to sort of paper the file. And make sure they sort of weren't holding it in their bank accounts in a too lengthy way, since it was meant for pretty short-term COVID relief. And everyone so far has spent the funds. $7,500 does not go a long way when your rent to a commercial landlord is $500,000 a month. So I think that went to some pretty good purposes. We are transitioning with Pat and Jeff to some extent to a $345,000 new grant award from the Office of Community Renewal, New York State, which had their own batch of HUD CARES Act money. Kind of hard to follow the, it's like follow the dot on a song. I mean, HUD distributed CARES Act money directly to Glens Falls as an entitlement community, but HUD also gave all 50 states their own CARES Act money going back to March 2020 for a variety of relief purposes, as you know. And one of the purposes was to put it into the competitive CDBG program, of which the city does not compete for, because you are an entitlement and you are entitled to your CDBG money from HUD every year. So to make a convoluted story short, the state is allowing entitlements like Glens Falls to compete for what normally would be that you wouldn't be eligible for, because they had so much money they needed to get out the door. So you basically have had two chances at the same apple, one with HUD CARES Act money, one that's fully administered, sort of call it phase one, and now this new $345,000 grant, which was awarded in last month, around the time of your meeting in March, to do more business loans. But the twist with this program, and I think it would be good to have LDC input going forward if we present these to you on a sort of hopefully a monthly basis. And it's a grant in the name of the city, but I think as sort of the economic development arm of the city, it's appropriate for you guys to have a role with the review of these projects, and we'll sort of work that process through with Pat and the mayor. But the difference with this new fund is it's COVID relief and recovery money, but it isn't necessarily $7,500 as a quick shot in the arm. This is more forward thinking. So if a business is ready to reopen, but maybe take a different model, offer a different product or a different service, or if takeout of a restaurant has boomed during the pandemic, but the equipment that a restaurant uses to facilitate takeout can't keep up, it's antiquated ovens or whatever. This is more of how can you expand your business as the pandemic subsides or sort of stays, kind of tampered down, and grow your business in a post-pandemic kind of model. So that we're going to be looking not so much for helping people with back rent or utility payments, because we hope a lot of those issues have hopefully subsided, but looking at how is a business now responding to COVID in a way that is more like a traditional economic development expansion. So it still has a COVID connection to it that the businesses will have to justify, but the amounts you could provide are higher. I think we budgeted between 10 and 15 businesses at an average of $20,000 or $25,000 rather than $7,500. They could be lower, obviously, but this is more traditional economic development with a COVID twist. And we have 12 months to get this out the door. We don't have, a luxury of a ton of time. But I think Pat has already facilitated a couple of ideas out there from some businesses that seem to fit. We do need to do a full application. We'll need to present them to either the existing review committee that the LDC set up, which I'll remind you was John Cordes, Pat Tadish, and Mary Gooden, or you could redo that, kind of reformulate that committee or do something different. But I think that those three people were wonderful and accessible in reviewing the past recovery fund deferred loans. I appreciate their input and accessibility to me when I presented those projects. But this is a little different. So this is kind of giving you a new tool, again, with a COVID connection, but more forward thinking and larger amounts. So maybe a larger business than a 1 or 2 person business might benefit from this in a way that they can invest in their future. The only thing that's sort of off the table completely is building renovations. This money cannot do physical space renovations. So we have to still think along the lines of equipment, machinery, inventory, things that can be bought, quoted, documented, and we can get reimbursed, get the money back into the LDC and back to the business quickly and simply.
I just have a quick question, not to interrupt you. Would it be fair to interpret this then as sort of what we're essentially doing is helping businesses to adjust to the new normal? I mean, if we assume that we have a new reset, we'll assume, let's take it for granted, maybe foolishly, that COVID is over and that we now have a new dynamic, right? The world is different and we need to move forward within this new world. And these funds are available to help them to, create whatever the tools they need to deal with what we're going to be doing going forward.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It's less about buying masks and PPE and paying back rent, although we can use those metrics like revenue loss in the past 2 years to prove that there was a COVID connection. But what do you want to use these funds going forward for? And that, if outdoor dining is very successful for somebody, but they need they could expand that with tables and chairs and, hard furniture in a way that would be long-term, or maybe some other equipment, that I'm using restaurants because they're kind of one of the more popular businesses in Glens Falls. It's a good example, but I think there's in the beauty care world. I mean, we've been talking to a barber that has an issue with chairs and barber chairs that are fairly expensive. And if they have enough people wanting to get their hair cut and space them out in their store enough to protect people health-wise, I think that's an eligible activity. So I think there's a lot of ideas out there we have to start to cultivate, but this is actually more money than your first phase of CARES Act money. And it's because New York State thankfully allowed the city as an entitlement to actually apply for a pot of money that you normally wouldn't have access to. So it's kind of cool. And I look forward to getting with Jeff and Pat and the mayor, and then hopefully John, Mary, and Pat Tadish or some other review committee to see this through.
Tim, do you want us to reapprove the review committee now so you can keep moving?
I think that would make sense. Yeah, that way we can. I was actually going to talk to Jim today about the finalization of the application process. But we do have people calling in. It would be nice to be able to get the money to them as soon as possible so it can be helpful.
Well, why don't we reapprove the review committee? And if you want to make changes next month, you can always make changes. But why don't you, if the clock is ticking, keep moving. And if those people are still available, then keep going. One of them's right here now, John Cordy's.
Well,
And Mary, 2 people.
Right.
I'm willing to do it again.
Thank
Mary?
you, John.
Yes, me too.
So, I'll make a motion that we reapprove the review committee and I guess come back to us with the application form for us to sign off on maybe next month. Does that work?
Sure. Yeah, that would be great.
When's the clock start ticking, Patrick or Jim?
I think it's already started, right, Jim? Yes.
Yeah.
So
we're in the first.
Who's the third person? I can't remember.
Pat Tadish.
It's Pat
Thank
Tadish.
you.
Okay.
Jim, is this going to be strictly physical type of material things for the businesses, or are labor costs going to be like if they wanted to add employees or anything?
Yeah, I think payroll is possible. I have to go back and look carefully at the state guidelines, because the overlay here is the New York State Office of Community Renewal, which administers the state portion of the CDBG program. So there's HUD ways of doing things, and then the state can kind of, they sort of see this as doing things their way that doesn't flaunt, obviously, federal regulations or statutes. And I know things like capital building costs are off the table. Payroll, I think, could be possible, but part of the trick with this is why we're going to look for bigger businesses is that the business has to float these costs up front. So if the LDC approves a project for XYZ equipment or whatever, the business has to show that they spent that money, then they can get reimbursed. And I think the reimbursement, will be 30 days or less, hopefully through a drawdown process. But unlike your past HUD money, John, that you were part of reviewing, that we could access through the Treasury pretty quickly. So it was almost more like giving folks a line of credit. This is a reimbursement basis, and that's going to be a bit of an education process with businesses. Now, businesses with 10 or 15, 20 employees that have good cash flow might not be a big a deal, but that's why I don't think we're going to necessarily hit a big project for a one-person business if they don't have another source of cash to float whatever cost, payroll, or piece of equipment that they want to float. We can't get an advance on this money, is what I'm saying.
So, but we could say, as ourselves, just say, well, we're just not going to give it towards labor costs, just these other things you mentioned.
Right. It's going to be more like GF Drive on the DRI side, and those were businesses that had to show us proof of payment, excruciating proof of payment of $20,000, $40,000 of stuff. I mean, down to the credit card bill statement and the canceled check and the whatever. I mean, it was tedious, but then the money did flow back to the LDC to write checks to those businesses. This is going to be more like that, for better or for worse.
I assume, Jim, this money's going to flow through the Housing Trust Fund Corporation? Is that true?
Yes.
Have we been assigned somebody at HCR yet?
That's a good question, Judy. There's kind of two people that are heading up this state cares and on the front end, soliciting applications and getting municipalities kind of excited about it. In terms of an actual rep, I'm not sure if it's those same one or two people or someone different.
Yeah, it does. It looks like, I'm sorry, Jim, I don't mean to interrupt, but it looks like the award letter does not necessarily, the award letter is signed by the CEO. So we don't have a specific rep yet.
Okay. Let me know if you need help with that.
Okay.
I might know them. So any questions about that? Any additional questions? We've had questions. Okay. So then under other business, so similar to what we've been talking about, as you realize, this federal community development block grant fund, some of it has been moving through the local development corporation. And so as Jim explained earlier, the city of Glens Falls is an entitlement community under the federal community development block grant program, which is administered by the Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development. And I think typically we would not go down this path, but I wanted the members to be aware, since some CDBG funds have come through thus, that the city puts together an action plan and a budget, and that is pending right now and out for comment. And so if any of the LDC board members would like to take a look at that or comment on it, there'll be a public hearing. You can comment at that public hearing, or you can comment in writing. And that is going on right now. Patrick, if you can share those dates and or maybe the link, if the members could have a link to that on your website.
Sure. Yep, we can certainly do that.
If they want to see that plan, that 3-action plan, I'm sorry, your 3-action plan and or budget, then you'd be able to see it. And if you want to comment, you'd be able to. Go ahead.
Right, yeah, certainly the draft plan, we can certainly share a link to that. It goes to the 23rd of May. The comment period is open for community comment, basically. Jim and I, Jim gave me a very, very deep baptism on a lot of the requirements, documents, and other for the program. So I wouldn't presume to give you all the information. You all probably know as much as I do. But Jim and I spent a number of hours over days reviewing the proposed budget with the idea of apparently there had been a number of years where the block grant budget was pretty solid, pretty mechanical in terms of this year we did this, so next year we do that, so next year we do that. And so based on a couple of priorities that the mayor has, we've made some changes for next year's budget, including just very quickly, including moving some items around so we had a little bit more money in the paving and sidewalks, because we've got money already in a home buyers, the Adirondack Gateway Home Buyers Program. We made some changes in that line as well. And so there's, as I said, it wasn't dramatic changes. At least I don't think so, Jim. You can tell me if they were dramatic changes. But I think, the changes in what we're proposing for this year really focus on the needs that we see in the city. So I will stop talking, and I will plan to send you all the link to the action plan and the contingency budget. We don't have because the federal government's budget was 6 months late this year, we don't actually have anything from HUD that says what our entitlement assignment, I'm not sure that's the right word, what the money will be that's coming to us. So we're waiting for that. I was told by the HUD people the other day when I was on my second training with them that that they are expecting it very soon. What very soon means for the federal government, I don't know.
Okay.
So yes.
Yeah,
go ahead, Jim.
Sorry, Pat. Yeah, no, that's a very good description. You basically, your program year is technically August 1st to July 31st every year, which is why March, April, May is when a lot of this planning happens. As Pat said, in the past, it was somewhat close to the vest, if and a little less maybe. Well, maybe. Anyway, this year we're trying to be a little more thoughtful with new people in different chairs, in terms of matching up community needs. But your program year is August 1st for CDBG. So HUD has to have 45 days to review your plans. It's like getting an automatic grant every year as long as you jump over the necessary hurdles, but you aren't necessarily competing for it. You're just making HUD happy and giving them time to review your annual plan. So that's what being an entitlement is for the most part. The components of housing has, rehab and homeownership has been in these budgets each year. Sidewalks and neighborhood improvements in eligible wards of the city. There's at least 15% or up to 15% of your annual CDBG grant can be dispersed to nonprofit public service agencies. I think the city's done a very good job at that component over the years for anywhere between 9 and 12 different nonprofits that really do touch on senior and elderly issues, at-risk youth, homelessness, prevention. People are watching the homelessness issue with what's going on in Saratoga, but there are agencies up here that have been working on homelessness for 10, 15, 20 years, believe it or not. They do their work quietly, and they don't, doesn't really make waves in the community, but you are supporting them through this block grant program to try to keep people off the streets or off park benches or what have you as best as possible. So I think it's a decent draft budget. I will say for the LDC's purposes, every year, there has been a very small amount of what we call program income, which is generated by past loans, economic development loans that the LDC made years ago using this block grant money. And those payments, as they come back, you can retain in a revolving loan fund. And I think there's some old guidelines. I'm not sure even what they date, what the vintage of those are, but you do have or have had a revolving loan fund program in the past as an LDC. And some of this block grant money is used for that. It's been, you know, as all the members know, it's been, your ability to loan money has been somewhat minimized because you haven't had a lot of capital left from old loans or other new sources. But there is about $30,000, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it depends on, again, the size on what someone might need for a business loan. Mostly of old repayments or some amounts that we can budget in this annual budget for the LDC to have for traditional interest bearing, you know, kind of your, you know, forget about COVID for a second, but you're just your traditional, you know, 0 to 3-4% interest commercial loans, like in years past that Jeff, Pat, and the mayor obviously, you know, have it as another tool. Not a lot of money, but it's there. But a small component of this block grant budget because of other priorities in the neighborhoods and with housing, code enforcement, and the nonprofit component. So I just wanted to kind of put a little sunshine on that on the economic development side of the block grant funding, just so your wheels are turning a little bit, not so that, you know, not to ruffle any feathers, but there is a little bit of ED loan money that, you know, Jeff and Pat can administer on your behalf if the need arises, beyond the COVID stuff that we're working on.
So there is a direct link to the work that we do as a board. And so if your schedule, if your time permits, I would just encourage you to take a look at the year 3 action plan and the budget and comment through the established process, either by writing a comment or attending the public hearing. So that's basically it. And I think Patrick will send you a link to that, which is on the website. Okay. Any other comments, questions? Any other business to come before the board? Okay, there being none, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Mary makes the motion, Lois seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. Next
Thank you, ladies and
meeting,
gentlemen.
Thursday, May 12th, everybody. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Take care.
Great day.
You too.